Hey guys, I wanted to talk tonight a little bit about grief. There are 5 stages to the grieving process, and I'm just going to read them off here. But they are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And there's a couple more that sometimes end up in the mix, but those stages of grief are the typical experiences you're going to have when you're dealing with a loss. Now, when we think about grief, we normally think about the experience a person has after somebody dies. That's standard. I mean, of course, that makes perfect sense. They just had somebody taken from their life that they really cared about. They're going to have that grieving process. And it's expected and it's understood, for which I'm grateful, and we support them through it, through that grief. But what's less understood and less commonly accepted is that you can experience grief through many experiences. It doesn't always show up when somebody dies. It can show up when you have a major life upheaval. It can show up when a woman has a miscarriage. You know, she's attached to that baby from the start. It can show up when there's a series of events that just rocks your world to such a degree that you have to completely alter who you are to get through the life you have. All of that is a loss that you're experiencing, a loss of yourself, a loss of an ideal, a loss of a belief. In any sense of loss, often comes with a lot of those experiences of grief, those 5 stages. So the reason I touch on that is because when I went through my postpartum and when I was dealing with that major life upheaval, I mean, there was a lot. There were many triggers that caused those experiences, but the one thing I kept thinking and I kept telling people was like, if you only understood what I'm experiencing, if you could just get it. And I remember aching to mourn my own death, because for me, the person I had been 6 months before was no longer the person I was now. And I didn't know how to regain myself, and I knew that the person I had been no longer fit with my life. So then I was in this limbo of, who am I? Where do I experience that person that I lost along the way? Part of me actually liked her. I liked her a lot better than the person I was currently. But all of those emotions and thoughts were going through my mind, and I just wanted to grieve. I just wanted somebody to give me the time and give me the space to get through it and have those emotions and just freaking grieve. But I didn't understand what I was experiencing. Nobody understood what I was experiencing. And, you know, hindsight is great because I can see now that had I given myself the time, that would have probably been a faster process. But I didn't. So the reason I bring that up is because you may be going through those experiences. It may be that you're actually in some stage of grief for whatever reason, and you may not understand that, or you think there's something wrong with you for having the experience that you just need to grieve. I think a big thing I learned in all of that was there's nothing wrong with going through the grieving process, even if it's for the smallest, seemingly insignificant thing. If it's a loss to you and it triggers those emotions, that's just that's just what you're experiencing. Now, when I learned to start being with my emotions and not fighting them, but just allowing them to work through me, and it took something to recognize that I didn't have to fight them, but when I started to allow them to work through is when it starts to heal. If you're going through the grieving process or you're in any stage of any emotional upheaval, one of the most detrimental things we can do is to bury it. You bury it in some dark corner of your mind, and you think it's gone, but it doesn't ever leave. It comes back to haunt you in the smallest ways, or in those crazy, insane blow-ups where you just feel like you lost your mind. All of those are just those buried emotions. They're buried incompletions. They're buried conversations you never dealt with, never had, never wanted to have, whatever. They all just come back to prick at you all the time. So when you allow yourself to experience them and be with them and just get the world of that, you begin to heal. And it can take time, or you can, if you're awesome, you can work through it more quickly, but you've got to allow yourself the time and the space to start working through those things and experiencing them and getting in communication. Don't do it alone, regardless of what you're experiencing. If you do it alone, it takes a lot more time and it's much more difficult than it needs to be. So that's what I want to leave you with tonight. If you're in any form of grief, any form of that emotional upheaval, allow it to be felt. That doesn't mean it controls you. It just means you allow the emotions to be experienced. And learn to talk about it. Learn to really get in communication and verbalize what you're experiencing in a way that empowers you. So that's my advice for tonight.